All right, guys, welcome back to our second installment of DMAC and I just chewing the fat over history. We're going to talk about Gallipoli today.
Geez, that sounds exciting, sir. I can hardly wait.
He's jumping out of his skin over here. Anyway, you can see on our little screen here, we've got Gallipoli, year of the deadlock, 1915. So 1914, as we saw before, was all about the start of the war, the failure of those war plans, in particular the Schlieffen Plan and Plan 17. And now things have settled down on the Western Front and we have trench warfare. So this brings us to the attempts to break the stalemate on the Western Front, the attempt to break the deadlock. And you can see in this little picture here, there's a lot going on. Okay, there's the Eastern Front up here.
You mean the picture I drew for them? Oh, that's nice. Get on with it.
He likes to blow his own trumpet, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah, D-Mac drew this, and he made his whole PowerPoint. Whiz-bag genius D-Mac.
Can we move on?
Anyway, whatever. The Eastern Front's up here with Russia.
I'll blow my own trumpet.
And the Western Front is over here. You can't see it in this picture. As you can see, trench warfare has happened on the Western Front. The Eastern Front, though, remains, pretty fluid. Things are moving. And in order to break the stalemate on the Western Front, the Allies have decided, let's try and take the war somewhere else. DMAC.
Yeah, so if you look at the map there, you can see that it was basically a decision to kind of open up a southern front. Now, Turkey had entered the war and it had basically blocked the Black Sea, which you can see there. Now, there are a lot of neutral countries like Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, and Italy. And Russia was very much isolated. So there was as was Serbia, which you can also see on there. So have a look at those countries. And you can see that the theory was that we need to bring assistance to Russia. Somehow we have to break through that blockade that Turkey's got on the Black Sea. We have to bring in support for Russia because with Russian numbers, we may be able to break through Germany from the east. So we'll have a southern and an eastern front.
That's a really good point, D-Mate, because Russia, although they have a lot of people, they've got millions and millions of troops, but they just don't have the weapons to supply them. Generally, they'd have to share a weapon between them. Like you might share a textbook, for example. They'd be sharing their rifles, and they can only be supplied either up north in this place called Murmansk or Archangel, and those ports are only open for half the year because they're generally frozen, or in the very east at a place called Vladivostok, but that's a long way away, or in this place here in the Black Sea. So if the Allies can open this up, then they can get supplies into Russia, and the Russians will probably become more effective against the Germans here. All right, let's move on anyway. I think there was one other point we wanted to make as well, DMAC, about trying to entice some of these countries onto the side of the Allies. So if we...
Yeah, particularly Italy. Italy is a neutral power at this point, even though it had been on the German side to begin with, but it had declared for neutrality. And yeah, it was hoped that if we make a big presence down here in the Mediterranean, Italy might be tempted to join us.
That's right. So if Turkey's wiped out, if we're there, then Italy, I reckon, might actually get on board with this. Okay, I just want to check if this thing's still recording, and it is. We're still a go. That's good, because that'd be terrible for DMAC if we did this whole thing and then it didn't record, and he'd be quite upset with me, as he usually is. Anyway, let's keep going. All right, so the strategy here. You can see this big circle you have. It's called the Dardanelles. There's two straits here. The Dardanelles are here, and the Bosphorus are here. Now, the idea is to break through this small little strait and take this city here, Constantinople, which is the capital of Turkey.
No, it is not. Ankara is the capital of Turkey. Constantinople is the major city on the Bosphorus. But hey, he's a historian. He's not particularly good at geography.
Yeah, I've been told that a number of times. Luckily, DMAC is here to correct me. Okay, so DMAC, do you want to explain the initial strategy?
Basically, the British come up with two plans working with the French. And the first plan is that they're going to use their navy and they're going to bash their way through the Dardanelles, take out all the Turkish defences, then move up and capture Constantinople. So that's plan A. But if plan A does not work, then we're going to go to plan B. Now, plan B is a little more complicated, not much, but instead what they're going to do is they're going to land an army on the west side of the Dardanelles Strait. Now, if you look at that, that is the Gallipoli Peninsula, the famous Gallipoli Peninsula. Right, that is where they're going to land. Now, they're going to land there, and they will land at different points, take over the peninsula, and then by land, they will march up on Constantinople.
Which is not the capital of Turkey. Ankara is. Remember that, guys. Tell that to Mr. Roper. Okay? See if he knows.
Okay. And of course, once they have moved up by land and sea now and captured Constantinople, well, then, they will have the strategic upper hand over Turkey and Germany. And naturally, what will then happen is they will be able to open up a supply line to Russia, which you can see when we've gone back to the original map. And once we have that supply line, Turkey is going to, in theory, collapse, right? Because everyone expects that Turkey is kind of the weak link in the chain. Turkey will collapse, and we'll now have a southern front, which will join with the eastern front, and we will have Germany and Austria-Hungary completely contained. Hopefully, Italy is going to change sides, and maybe even Romania and Bulgaria. This is going to help that to happen. And hey, we could have the war over by 1916 with a bit of luck.
That'd be right, wouldn't it? You know?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll head home for Christmas like we were going to do in 1914. It didn't work out, and have a couple nice beers on the veranda.
D-Mac will head home for his dive around Shell Harbour, and I'll head home to watch the cricket, I reckon. Sounds good. That's if we're at war. Anyway, a couple of important guys here. First one is this guy here pointing at you. His name's Herbert Kitchener, okay? The great-grandfather of Frank and Herb, okay, Herbert Kitchener. He is the Secretary of State for War, and he's the one orchestrating the war in Britain. This other bloke.
However, the plan mostly belongs to the Navy, and it's devised by Winston Churchill, who we do not have a very good relationship with as Australians. He managed to get us into a few messes. Thank you, Winston.
But Britain still loves him today. And these two other blokes here, this one looking rather, how would you describe his appearance there, Jimmy?
Slightly floppish.
Very floppish. Okay. He's not really made for the sea, is he? Okay. General Ian Hamilton is going to command those armed forces, and Admiral de Roebuck here, he's going to command that British Navy. Okay. So there we go. There's our commanders briefly. Okay, there's some great quotes you can look through there as well.
Have a look, because they tell you a lot about their characters and why the plan is not going to work.
Fantastic. And on the other side here, we've got this man here. His name is Mustafa Kemal. Okay, he is pivotal to the Turkish campaign and their success over there. And he's
Mustafa over there. You got the wrong guy. That's Lyman. Oh, why did I kill you?
Sorry. That's Mustafa there. Here's our German general over here, Otto Lehmann von Sanders. They look very similar. It's hard. It's black and white as well.
They don't look anything alike.
These guys are going to.
One that wears glasses.
They're going to organise the defence of the Gallipoli Peninsula, and ultimately hold the Australian.
And just to finish this off, because you might go a lot into this, but Mustafa is the exact opposite of the British commander Ian Hamilton. He is absolutely ruthless. And Lyman's is the brains of the operation. He is a very smart cookie. And these guys, they just completely outclass the British generals.
100%. I definitely agree with you there. Okay. They are very, very formidable adversaries. Okay. Some great quotes here. This one. you can see the passion that comes out through D-Mac as he says so. Like, he'd like to say that to you guys, I think, a couple of times, or he should die. But yeah, that's how ruthless he was. Or you should die. All right, here's our Straiten Peninsula. Okay, the biggest thing to note here is the terrain. I mean, look how hilly this place is. All right, now this terrain is perfect for defending. Okay, because our attackers, the Australians and the British, have to attack uphill here, and the Turks can position themselves very carefully amongst these ravines and these cliffs and these hills. Really perfect. The second example here would be the strait along here, very, very narrow. So the British warships have to come in here almost in single file to try and clear this strait out, which is going to make them easy targets for Turkish guns and Turkish mines. Okay, on your DMAC. There's our strait. Anzac Cove up here is where the Aussies will land. We'll come back to that soon. And Cape Helles is where the British will land as well. Okay, and down here, Cape Yenny, the French will stage some kind of little attack down here, but won't do much. All right. Okay, let's look at the Turkish defences here along their side. So as I said before, as the warships come in here, they have to try and negotiate these Turkish forts along here. These are mobile gun batteries, so they can be moved backwards and forwards, and they can be camouflaged as well. These big guns here, they don't move, but they are really, really hard to knock out by the British. Okay, so as we move in, you'll see there's these mines as well that have been laid in the strait. So the British have to try and clear these mines whilst also trying to take out these guns, which, as you'll see in a minute, they just cannot do. It's too hard for them.
Okay, the real key to the defence are actually those mines. The guns are not really all that effective, but it's the mines that are going to do the real damage.
That's right. Okay, let's go on to our first initial assaults. Okay, so this should work here. All right, so you can see the Navy debacle here. Taking out those front forts, fantastic. Cleared those first mines, great. Now they're being harassed by these other mobile guns up here, and you can see there's little boats here, our minesweepers. Okay, they're trying to sweep these mines, but they're under fire from these guns, and so are the battleships.
Okay, just to remind you, this is plan A. Remember, so we've got a plan A and a plan B. Yeah. So now we're going in with plan A. You can see French and British battleships working together and getting up this strait. Basically, in terms of the guns, they don't really have that much of a problem. The big guns of the British warships are more than a match for the Turks. Okay, however, on the way up, some of these mines have actually come loose and they lose some of their battleships. Now, the admiral, who we sort of didn't really talk about before, his name was de Roebuck. De Roebuck lost a few ships and he decided that he couldn't make it through the defences. Now, as it turned out, later he will be accused of not having enough moral fibre, strength to push through. And in fact, he really should have pushed through. The losses were not that significant. But because he didn't have the nerve to continue on and force his way through, even though it's quite likely he could have, they will have to go to plan B.
Yeah. That also being said, it was claimed later on that the Turks were almost out of ammunition in those guns. If a second assault had gone through, then there was a good chance they would have succeeded and silenced those guns and made it. Yeah.
And so, as you can see, there they are, turning around, tail between their legs and heading off, which was a really serious mistake because wars are also not just about achieving victories. It's also about morale. Now, at this stage, they had a good chance of really doing some damage to Turkey. But because they ran away, the Turks took courage and believed, well, actually, we might actually have a chance of defending here.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Okay.
Now we go to plan B.
And you'll notice the date here. This is 25th of April. That was around the 18th of March, I think. So it wasn't too far between these two plans. Okay, so the Australians have to launch this amphibious assault, as assault by boats onto a well-defended area in a matter of weeks without much preparation, and that's for a number of reasons. They want to try and keep that momentum going, and harness the element of surprise, but at the same time they're hopelessly underprepared for any kind of major operation. I mean,
Okay, if you look at where the Anzacs landed, and you can see Anzac Cove there, it leads up to a height called Chinook Bear. Now, the object of the Anzacs was to land at Anzac Cove and move up those heights and capture that area first. And particularly what they want to do is cut the peninsula off, reach over to Bukhali, the town of Bukhali and Midos, and if they can control that area, then the Turks are not going to be able to bring their forces down. This was the ambition and the plan of the General Ian Hamilton. The Anzacs are going to do that. In fact, it's not even going to get anywhere near that. The Anzacs are barely even going to get off the beach. They're only going to make it up to the first level of the foothills of Chinook Bear.
Yeah, so they won't come close to nailing their first day objective. You can see the lines there. The black ones there are the Australian lines. That's about as far as they get for the entire campaign. And the red lines here are the Turkish trenches. Okay, so they're really hemmed in there. Down here, you have the French. Okay, they have like a minor diversionary attack down in the south at Cumcayo.
Okay, they moved down on Cumcayo. In fact, this was really quite successful. And had they planned to actually stay, they might have done some serious damage. But the French attack was really a diversion. And unfortunately, as usually happened in this campaign, diversions tended to be successful and the main attacks failed.
Yeah, that's right. Leading us to our main assault here down on Cape Helles by the British. Okay, now you would have noticed in that writing for the Anzacs, they attacked in the early hours of the morning. So almost when it was pitch black, they're attacking at night time. The British here, though, they're attacking mid-morning when it's bright sun. Okay, there is no element of surprise here. The Turks know that they're coming, and they have their defences well sorted out.
So while some of those arrows were quite successful, they landed quite easily. Other ones were absolute slaughters. However, again, same problem. Initially, the British did overcome the Turkish defences, but as they began to push inland, they reached an area called the Krithia Plain. The Turks now begin throwing their forces into this attack, and as a result of that, it ends up just like in Anzac Cove in a deadlock. The British have gained a bit more ground, but they are no closer to anywhere near getting towards Constantinople.
Yeah. Or even, I'm pretty sure this was their first day objective, Achibaba, and they didn't get anywhere near that at all. Their first day
no capture Achibaba.
No capture, no. That's right. All right, great picture there. Did you draw that one, D-Mac?
No.
No.
I stole that.
Wouldn't surprise me. All right. Artillery duels. So the Anzacs and the Poms, mainly the British. Sorry, that's their battleships, but they're shelling these Turkish positions.
This is the first picture. Shows you the initial attacks on Anzac Day, 1915. You've got the Anzacs landing at Anzac Cove, and the British landing at Cape Helles, and the French coming at Cumcayo. Now what we're looking at is what happens for the next 8 months, because those lines that we talked about don't move, barely at all. Mm-hmm. And so most of the time you've got the British supporting their troops at Anzac Cove and on the Krithia Plain with the big guns of their battleships.
Yeah. Although this will change soon, because a German sub gets through these straits and starts knocking out some of these battleships.
Listen ahead too fast. Okay, if you look there, what you can see is the Turks naturally counter because they hold the high ground. And because they're holding the hills, they're basically firing down into the British and the Australian, New Zealand positions. And so you can see that their guns cover pretty much the same areas that the British battleships do.
All right. Okay. Submarine warfare. We talked about how the German sub got through and sank some of those battleships, but also
Move on so we can see what's happening.
oh,
You're
go
okay.
on.
See, submarine appears.
That's our sub, isn't it? Is that
That's our sub.
AE2?
That's AE2.
AE2. Good old AE2. And look at him go. Getting through there, no worries.
He's a champion.
He's a champion. Go, you good little thing. He's gone.
Okay, a little bit about AE2. AE2 is an Australian submarine, and basically what happened was it actually managed to get through the minefields, got up past Midos and sank a Turkish gunboat. And then it wandered its way up into the Black Sea, and eventually it was actually captured. But because of the success of this little submarine, the British General Ian Hamilton was encouraged to think that, oh, we're actually achieving something here. How he managed to think this, I don't know. But as a result of that, he ordered, even though his generals at Anzac Cove and Cape Helles were beginning to question whether they were going to succeed here, he encouraged them to dig in and hold firm because the submarine had gotten through. Good move.
A little submarine that could. Good on him.
However, more effective are the German submarines.
It's their little
which begin operating in this area, and they start taking out some of those big British battleships. Now, those battleships are very expensive, and as a result of that, the British cannot keep their fleets in this area to support their troops. And so they begin withdrawing a lot of their artillery support, and clearly the Turks now have the advantage in artillery.
Yeah, making the situation even worse. All right, let's skip ahead. We could talk about that, but we don't have much time.
It'd be too complicated for you.
Yeah, okay, whatevs. Communication as well, yeah. I want to move to the battles, really, okay? The battles, the August offensives. So we've talked about at Anzac Day, Lone Pine and the Battle of the Neck plenty of times, but what exactly were they, DMAC? What were these battles?
Okay, right. So for 8 months, and if you go back carefully through the bits of the PowerPoint that we looked at, for 8 months, they are struggling to get anywhere. So they decided on one final throw to see if they could break through the Turkish attacks. And so what they've decided to do is they're going to try a new landing. Now I want you to look up there, and you can see past Anzac Cove, you'll see an area called Suvla Bay.
There you go, up here.
Now, Suvla Bay opens up on a big salt lake, and if you see it, it's ringed by hills. Now, what they've decided to do is that they're going to launch diversionary attacks at Anzac Cove. They're going to make the Turks think we've got a big assault coming here. The Anzacs are going to make one big push to get through here. And so we're going to launch 3 attacks, one at Lone Pine, one at the Neck, and one further along at Shunik Bear. The Turks are going to be drawn down to here, and while they're busy containing the Anzacs, we're going to land British soldiers at Suvla Bay. So, here's basically what happens. The Anzacs make their diversionary attacks. Lone Pine is actually one of the few successful battles that the Australians had at Gallipoli. However, big problem. First of all, it wasn't really intended to succeed. And what's more, it couldn't succeed. Once the Australians actually captured part of the Turkish trenches, they actually broke through and captured it. If you look at the map more closely, or you had a blow up of it, you would see that Lone Pine goes nowhere. It just leads to more heights and more big valleys, which are almost impassable. You can't get through there. So while this attack, yes, the Australians lost a lot of men doing it, but in fact, even though they won the battle, it got them nowhere. The neck was an absolute disaster. The Australians charged across very narrow ground to capture an area that was heavily defended by machine guns. Incredible bravery was shown by the Australian light horse trying to break through here, but they were simply massacred.
Yeah, if you watch the movie Gallipoli, it's the battle at the very end, and it's horrific what happens.
Last of all, the attack up Chunuk Bair didn't go too badly, but again, it really wasn't going to go anywhere. The ground was too steep and it was too difficult. Now, of course, none of these attacks were really intended as a breakthrough. They were diversions. But any Turkish general with half a brain, and Mustafa has more brains than most, he would look at these attacks and he'd be going, what on earth are the Anzacs trying to achieve? Nothing. Clearly, these are just diversions. So, meanwhile, the British land at Suvla Bay. Now, in fact, the British attacks were extremely successful, largely because there weren't any Turks there. And they quickly gained control of the bay area and the flat ground around the salt lakes and had pushed up to the area that you can see there called Kirich Tepe. However, and here's where things went wrong. The general that they put in command of this force needed to be a really go-getter, pushy, so-and-so. And unfortunately, the man that they chose, and is his name there because I've forgotten
No,
it.
his name's not there, and I can't remember it. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Was it Stoppard?
It was something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he decided that the most important thing, hold on, it was. I'm trying to get too fast.
Did you find it?
You got me confused.
No, his name's not there.
Oh,
I might look it up while he's blabbering on
look at it.
and do two things.
Okay, I want you to have a look there, and you can see that again, the British have managed to capture the bay area, the salt lakes, and the flat ground, but they have not captured those heights. And the main reason was that the British general decided that the most important thing to do on landing was not to go on to the offensive, but to dig good defenses. And mostly, most important, he needed a strong command post that could be defended. So they spent a lot of time digging one while he had cups of tea. Stopford. Nearly had it. Stopford, yes. Well, it all came to think because that was basically what had happened, was it stopped. It just stopped.
You want to go for it, not stop.
Yeah, you needed go, 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 go. But yeah, stop, 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 stop. So as a result of that, the entire line simply froze up again. It now joined up with the Anzacs at Chunuk Bair. But again, as you can see, they are nowhere near even capturing the Gallipoli Peninsula, let alone moving on to Constantinople.
So I guess, D-Mac, you'd want someone like Toole at Suvla who wants to fight everyone, not someone like Mr. Pitt who just wants to drink tea the whole time. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. Anyway, so the last bit, and this was the only thing that they actually managed to really do successfully in any way. Essentially, it was realised that Ian Hamilton was a dud, a complete and utter dud. He will never again really command anything in the British Army. So he was replaced. They now send a new general whose name is Munro. Munro did a quick tour of both Cape Hells and the Anzac position, and basically he went away scratching his head and said, why on earth did we ever even land here? This is pointless. This is a waste of time. And he looked at the situation, he thought, there's no way this is going to work. So as a result of that, he wrote back to Kitchener and Churchill and said that he was advising an immediate evacuation. This evacuation, as he said, was about the only thing that they managed to carry out successfully. So amazingly, particularly at Anzac Cove, where the enemy could look right down in the Australian trenches, the Australians and the British managed to get all their forces off that peninsula with, I think the major, somebody got a cut finger or something, but there were no casualties and no deaths from it. Now, this was an incredibly dangerous operation because, in fact, if this had, if the Turks had ever found out, they would have launched an attack halfway through it, and we would have had horrendous casualties. But the deception that they carried out was brilliant, and as a result of that, it was the only thing we achieved at Gallipoli, as we can say of note, is to lose about 7,000 Australian men and a whole lot more British ones, and to manage to get off the peninsula without losing any men at the last day.
Yeah, and that's all we got time for today,
Well done,
guys. That's right. We're great at getting out of there, really, hustling out of there. So
Australia, oi, oi, oi.
That's Gallipoli for you. So we'll leave that there, and there's some questions on the next page that you got to look through and answer. All right. Thank you, D-Mac, for that. Another stellar commentary.
Yeah, we think we does heap good.
Heap good. Awesome. All right, class. See ya.
Okay.